how can I find my place, my role in the collective?
So we've been chatting a lot about this past couple of weeks, I would say, no, Lele?
Every day.
And
We do that every day.
we didn't sleep over this. No, jokes aside, but it's a very nice question, and of course, we don't have the answer, the direct answer, but we have a few things that we thought about. I mean, my
Welcome back, everyone, to Sahaj Times podcast. My name is Lele. I'm the host of this podcast. And with me, as you know, there is the one and only Fabrizio Trezza. How are you, Fabrizio?
very good. Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here. How is life, Lele?
Life is good. Life is good. And especially because now I can see that you upgraded your podcasting setup. I'm really glad for that happening. And we spent like 1 hour and 48 minutes actually to do that. I've spent helping you doing
Yeah.
this. And, but
Yes, Lele.
we are here now.
Lele had to deal with his boomer big brother, but he was very patient, and I think everyone is happy to hear the new sound and the nice feeling of the mic. I'm very
Boomer
happy.
big brother, but also boomer uncle. Because and but also like we went to the Sasrara Puja in Cabela, and there was a great moment because we met each other after several months.
Yeah,
After
yeah,
several
yeah,
months, so
yeah,
like you were here in January, we were recording the first episode, and then we met watching like a football match in Rome, taking
yeah.
a coffee together. And the best moment was that we like you invited me and another Yuvashakti to take a coffee with you, and you were like, "What do you want to get?" And we were like, "We just want a coffee." And you went to take a coffee, and you also brought like 7 or 8 like cornetti, croissants, pizza for everyone. It was completely inappropriate, but it was actually a great moment.
The
And
best part of the chat was that your friend was asking me about my life, and my
yeah, yeah,
answer was like, "Go watch the first episode
just
if
go
you
to
want
watch
to
the
know that."
episode. Just watch the
Anything he
podcast.
asked was cool. But talking about Sasrara, it was quite amazing. I don't know if you felt that, but it was an insane puja for me. Like the nice weather came all of a sudden, and then you have this amazing puja, well organized, but also very deep with vibrations. And like the entire weekend, I felt like it was complete smoothness. And then you look around, everybody's happy. It felt like going back to the early 2000s, like when you had pujas with Shimaraji, and
Mhm.
having that pure feeling of everybody's together, everybody feels together. It was quite special. I really had a nice weekend. What about you?
I mean, I had like a great puja as well, and I don't know. Like, I was wondering, maybe I'm more used to Cabela pujas than you because you just came back like into Europe. So I don't know if you feel like the difference between pujas like from America or from Italy. I don't know if that's also like makes some sort of difference.
Uh,
Maybe.
it's a good question. I mean, of course, when you have a lot of yogis, the vibes are there, but you could
Hmm.
feel that in Kanajari as well. For example, in the US.
Yeah, and like also I was thinking right now. I said that thing about the difference between the puja locations, maybe because I'm used to Cabela. And as like I think many Italians are used to Gabella, of course, when you're used to something, you don't give it like the right value. For
Very
example,
true.
I was talking to Eugenie, like she's a really good friend of mine. She comes to Cabela once a year. And for them it's like the trip of the year. Like we go to Cabela, we go there. And literally I can go like to Cabela every puja, every weekend. I've got like friends there. We can have a house there. Maybe I didn't give the same value to the puja as you did. That's what I mean.
Absolutely. But I mean, we're totally derailing topics here, but I think it's a cool discussion. Is the same principle to me is like if you think of people that are born in Sahaj versus you got your Sepharization, like if you
Mhm.
saw life before Sepharization, in the moment you get your Sepharization, you're like, that's it. This is my destiny. You have an awareness. You have a very clear awareness. If you're born in Sahaj, you have to seek that. You have to find that value within yourself. On the
Yes.
other hand, if you're born in Sahaj, you do certain things naturally. You have a natural talent, if you wish, or natural
Um.
affinity to vibrations, which is also nice. So I think it applies also here in the sense that, yeah, maybe you go so often to Cabela, you don't give it so much value. At the same time, the fact that you go so often obviously vibrationally charges you up. It's a
Mm,
gift. It's a nice thing, you know.
yeah.
There's the both sides of the coin.
Yeah, like the thing about growing up in Sarja Yoga is that you personally, from my point of view, like for example, in the previous episode with the Auntie Maria Amelia, I was asking also questions about before Sajja Yoga, how she felt religion before Sajja Yoga, because I never had that. I never felt, I don't know, like
Yeah,
I never had doubts about religion. And of course, I'm lucky. I'm lucky for that because I never had like the struggle of the seeker,
yeah,
but I had the struggle of the realized souls. I don't know if we can put it like
exactly.
that.
I agree.
I
It's a
don't know,
different
like
type of
yeah,
journey.
yeah, it's totally different. And like sometimes there is this thing that we don't really understand each other. Like our generations don't really understand each other, and maybe you have like older uncles that, of course, they know what it feels like to be completely lost, and of course they try to put you in a certain way.
Yeah, they're trying to correct you. No, no, but I know the example you're trying to make is like I can see my kids. My kids are born in Sahaj. I
Mm,
have done mistakes that I don't want them to make. And so I'm
yeah.
gonna be on top of them, and I'm gonna be like, "Don't do that." But sometimes I don't let them do the journey because I'm like, "No, I already know that's wrong. You won't do it." But maybe they're like, "Hey, I want to try this," you know. So that I think
Mhm,
that's how you feel is that sometimes the uncles or the aunties they might, because of love, they might be a bit strict because they don't want you to get
mhm.
lost. But sometimes you do need to try the journey within a certain measure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
But to me, even the bigger lesson to all of this is that you see, in Sahaj, you need all types of people. And each one of us brings a different type of skills. So you have the guy who's a little bit more strict and who's a little bit more rigid, and
Mhm.
sometimes can be annoying, but they have a very important role in the collective. They're actually the ones kind of keeping the gravity of the collective. Then you have a person who's a bit more flexible and gets along with everyone and makes the new seekers feel more welcome. And they have also a
Yeah.
very important job because they're like the glue of the collective. But what is very important is that you appreciate the value of each different individual. And so even if you take kids that are born in Sarge and that are not, both of them, I think, bring a lot of important qualities to the collective. And neither of them is right or wrong. They just bring a different aspect of spirituality.
I don't know, like you mentioned something really important, that it was like the role thing. And I'm saying that because we have received many questions about this. Like, and also I'm taking this time to say, like, if you have any question, any topic that you would like to suggest, anything that you would be interested to hear more about, not that we are here to teach, but we are here like to come to have like conversations, like such conversations. You can text us like on Instagram, or you can send us an email. And if you want, you can also like subscribe to the channel or follow us like on Instagram. And I feel like I had to do that, like as the CEO of the podcast, it feels like fits right to say that.
Also, I would say if you have suggestions in terms of answer to some question that we make, and you want
Mhm.
to write a comment or something that you believe. Or another thing is, I think if you know people that have really amazing stories, either with marriage or miracles in life, put us in touch with them. We would really like to have everyone attend and have really nice stories for the group.
But what is the question, Lele? What is the question? What are you talking about? The question was, and get ready because I'm about to drop a bomb. But
Boom.
how can I find my place, my role in the collective?
So we've been chatting a lot about this past couple of weeks, I would say, no, Lily?
Every day.
And
We do that every day.
we didn't sleep over this. No, jokes aside, but it's a very nice question, and of course, we don't have the answer, the direct answer, but we have a few things that we thought about. I mean, my first reaction was like, well, if you mean well, if you genuinely want to be part of the collective, there is many avenues, there's many things that you can do to make yourself part of the collective, right? So the obvious thing, be helpful, prioritize Saja Yoga. So, the Saturday or the Sunday, the weekend meditation when everybody's there, make it your priority. I mean, I remember when I came in Sahaj, in a year, I would miss maybe once or twice, like because I was sick, but otherwise, that was my God given right to go and be with the yogis, and nothing
Mm.
would take me away from that. Um, attend the program for new people, and volunteer and so on and so forth. So I think there's a lot of things that once you start doing, then spontaneously and organically you find your place within the collective. And it kind of happens by itself. But also, I think at the end of the day, it's you first want to establish your connection to Shimaraji and then to everybody else. At least that's been my experience. So sometimes I feel you really need to know yourself well to understand where Shimaji wants you to be. So let's say, in essence, the way I see it is like this. Imagine a metaphor is like Saja Yoga is like a chessboard, right? And sometimes you'll be the queen and you can go everywhere and you'll be the leader and so on and so forth. Sometimes you'll be the tower and you're doing a project. And sometimes your job is just to be the little guy in the front that needs to move forward, be eaten, so that the queen can actually do the job, right? So sometimes your job is just to be attacked by negativity, and you should accept that. Like, that's just life, because it's not about your experience, it's about the full chessboard, right? So the reward, if you wish, it's not that you become the queen. You shouldn't aim at becoming the queen or the tower. Or the reward is that if you're on the board where God places you, you get touched by the hand of the divine as she moves you around. That's the reward. That's the gift. And it's very hard to remember that, because obviously we all want to be the queen. We all want to be the king
The
and
drama
and
queen.
and the cool, horse that moves around. Nobody wants to be the guy that has to go forward and be eaten for somebody. But I think when I'm in my best states, I really genuinely feel that way. And I have a very nice actual experience. I think it was around 2005 when I moved to the US. I was having a great time. I really was so much looking forward to go to the US. And one particular sister from Italy was kind of teasing me a lot. And she was saying, what's the point of going to the US? Shimaji's always in Italy. All the pujas are here. What's the point of going there? Like you're going away from the center of gravity. And first of all, it was hilarious because that particular year, Shimaji came to the US, literally where I was living. And it was the first time that Guru Puja in a long time was in America, actually, that specific year. But that aside, I didn't know at that time. Uh, as she was teasing me a lot, I had this beautiful dream with Shimaji where I was in a huge stadium, and there were like seekers everywhere. Like we didn't fit into the stadium. Like everybody was squeezed out. And to me, that's actually very important, because Shimaji often says in the US, there's so many realized born people, so many, which is true, or seekers, true seekers. And so there were so many people that I kept being squished to the front, like I was being pushed by the people coming in. And I was going more and more to the front, where literally in the dream, I was 1 meter away from Shimaji. And, and this particular sister that was teasing me was sitting next to me, and we were singing mantras or bhajans or something, and she kept talking to me, kind of giving directions or something like that. And
Mm.
Shimaji at some point looks to her and is like, that's enough. He has a job to do. You stop distracting him now. No more talking. And so basically, already there, I'm like, oof, this means, I'm really meant to be here. And then what was quite amazing is that there was a vase with flowers next to Shimaji. And almost by mistake, she moves her foot onto the flower and makes the vase fall on the ground and break. And but I'm like, immediately I rushed to save, to move the stuff because it was just in front of Shimaruji. Of course, it was not a mistake because she never does a mistake. That's what I was thinking. And then and there's so much like dirt and mud and broken flowers and glass, like everything is kind of ugly, on the floor. And I'm kind of picking up everything, all this dirt, all this garbage. But because it's very close to her feet, I just look up and I can see her feet, and I'm so close to it, like I'm
Mm.
20 centimeters away from it. And and then I tell to myself, how ironic is this? Like, I have my hands in the dirt and the garbage, but because of this work I'm doing with the garbage, I am so close to Shimaruji's feet. Like, literally, this is the reason why I'm there. And in the moment I say that, she laughs, she throws a head back, and she smiles so much. And then she looks at me as to say, you figured it out, right? And then in all that pile of garbage with her foot, she picks a coin, a gold coin, with her foot. And then she puts it on my hands, and she rests her feet on my hands. And by that time I was just crying,
Mm.
and I was just like in my super happy, emotional, joyous state. And then she looks at me, she's like, that's exactly how it works. When you do the work of the divine, you get really close to the divine. And then she drops the gold coin onto me, onto my hands, and she say, the only things I warn you about, don't make too much money in America. That's the only problem.
Oof.
And it's very interesting.
That's really interesting.
It's very interesting because I've seen it. I loved life in the US. But then you see a lot of yogis, they come, they get a good job, they get this, they get that, and then their life just gets sucked into buying the house, buying the car, and there's so much to do in America, there's so much potential, but then you also can get
Mhm.
sucked into it. So to me, it was quite interesting because then so many blessings came when I was in the States. And but yeah, this thing of don't get too carried with materialism, and it really stuck with me. It was quite and voila, I didn't get a super good job, so I'm very safe right now. I don't have too much money.
You didn't make all that money, so
I
it
didn't.
happened. The good path.
I
You
was
took
very
the
good.
good path. Going back to the question, and I think is a great question, but I also think that is a great starting point to find your role in the collective. But I will change the question to the next step, to something
Hmm.
like, what can I give to the collective? What can I do to, I don't know, like some sort of to create my role, even though like the role thing is a maya, it's quite complicated also to explain it. But to find like a role that I feel like I fit. For
Yeah,
example, I have this. For example, the podcast. This podcast, like I've been working on it for 1 year and a half. And I was trying really hard to do it because I was like, oh, that would be like a great idea, to interview yogis and talk to them. And I couldn't find like the right co-host. I couldn't find the right co-host. I was talking to people's and we had ideas, but never nothing really happened. And I was like, okay, maybe it's not happening because it's my ego. Maybe it should not happen. And when I completely like gave up to this, we met, like we started texting to each other every single day. And I was like, okay, maybe I found the co-host for the podcast. And now here we are. It's like, also it takes so much time, and also depends on your desire. That's the thing I've learned, because you can do the best thing for the collective, but like if you do introspection and you try to understand if it's like ego oriented or it's like pure desire. When my ego became pure desire, it started working. It worked out,
yeah,
and
exactly.
I don't know, it's a challenge. And also the biggest challenge of this situation is looking at other people doing the divine job, doing the
Yeah,
work for the divine, and seeing their joy, their happiness, and be like, I don't feel that. At the current state, I don't feel that. How can I feel that? Maybe I should do something more, or maybe there is something wrong with me. Also
Yeah.
when, I don't know, like sometimes you try to meditate or you don't feel the vibration, you might think like, oh, there is something wrong with me, maybe what's wrong. And I do understand why, like, sometimes someone might feel like that.
There is something you touched upon which I think is really important. We discuss this when, even when we share stories with Shimaraji, even, or when we share stories in the workshop of marriages, for example.
Mm.
It's actually important in Sahaj, as a collective, that we share the miracles that happen, so that you see the beauty, and that, look, that magic life can actually happen. But also we have to share our struggles.
Mhm.
And I give you the example of a marriage workshop. Actually, one of the applicants told us that they were saying, if I go to a workshop and all I hear is somebody had a dream with Shimaraji before getting married, another guy had a vision of his wife before, another woman, when she saw her husband, she felt vibrations, and for 3 days in a row it was this continuous da 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 da. And these are all true stories. The people are not lying. But if that's the only thing we talk about, then when somebody goes get married, their expectation is that immediately you fall in love with the person, that you have some sort of vision, that you must have a dream with Shimaji. Whereas all these things are not necessarily, they don't need to be there. They can
Mhm.
happen. It's part of the magic. But the most of the marriages, the most of the matches, there is a lot of work out to do, because you have to work out your ego, your super ego, etc., etc. So I think this is something that culturally, in a Sahaj culture, we also need to establish as a collective, which is when we do workshops, when we do seminars, when we talk to the yuvas, to the younger people, we shouldn't only talk about the miracles and the magic. We should also talk how we struggled and how did you overcome that struggle. It's very important to give a human journey experience to the whole talk. Um, I think it's really important what you meant on that. I think this, for example, is also, I feel personally, is very important with the yuvas. For example,
Mhm.
the yuvas need to feel that we, as older brothers and sisters, uncle and aunties, we understand that when you're young, you might be tempted to do certain things that are not allowed in Sahaj, right? You have peer
Yeah.
pressure to drink, to smoke, to have a boyfriend, girlfriend. We shouldn't say it's good to do, because it's not, obviously. But in our conversation with the yuvas, we should start with, I understand what you're going through, because it's relatively normal. Society is pressuring you into this. But my advice, if you want to take, is such. But it should start with, I see it, I understand the challenge. And so actually I wanted to turn the question on to you about this whole thing about being a Yuva Shakti. You're what, 24? Um,
Yeah.
how do you, as a Yuva, feel you fit within a context? How do you relate with your older brothers, sisters, uncles, aunties? And how do you relate with the kind of your younger generation?
Like, to be honest, like without my older brothers and sisters, I wouldn't be here. Still nowadays, like I'm I'm not reaching my peak because we don't really reach our peaks, maybe. But every time I see them, I have a conversation with them. I always talk to them. Also because I grew up with them. And growing up with them, I could always see what was my next step in life. For
Yeah,
example, I was in high school, they were doing universities. I was in a university, they were having like starting having jobs.
yeah.
Having jobs, they got married. And I think at this point I can stop and take a rest maybe from the next step. But without like my older brothers and sisters, I wouldn't be here. And to a certain point that I was like, okay, what can I give them back? Because they raised me in Saja Yoga. So what can I give them back? And I understood that the only thing that I can give them is to be the person that they were for me, for the younger generations maybe, and
Bravo.
learn from that experience. And I have like a young, there is especially there is one 18 years old guy, and to be honest, he's totally my little brother. Like he shares doubts with me also about Sajja Yoga, because he's 18, and I totally understand that you are having doubts because, as we were saying before, the struggle of the realized souls is different from the struggle that you had, maybe like as a seeker, and but is really doubtful. And even though like you're realized souls, you might have maybe more doubts about that because you don't feel that you're fit in a contest that you should not have those troubles.
No, I think what you say is true, but to me, what is super key, Lele, and I don't know if you feel that, but you see, what is really important is that because you had a lot of fun memories with these people and you spend a lot
Mm,
of time together and your heart is open to each other, when there is a problem, you do have the authority to come in and be like, guys, this is messed up. We're not going to do that. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
totally. Yeah.
If you don't hang around, if you don't spend time together, then you just some randos that is like, hey, that's wrong, and you look like you're fanatic. You look like you're wrong. But if you do have a connection, and that's built over the months, over the years, and there is that friendship, there is the connection, then when you do come in hard, they will respect you because they know it's like this is a
Hmm.
person that loves me. If he's saying that, there must be something true. There must be something to it that they will feel you. And I think it's quite amazing you have that at such young age, Lele, because I don't know if I look back uh, in my 20s, around the age, it's such a maya because everybody is trying to be in the cool group. Everybody wants to be part of the kind of, it can be, you can be an artist, it can be the guy that talks, it can be the guy that
Hmm.
does program. Everybody's trying to find its own position. And you're so busy trying to find who you are, they actually don't have time to look after other people, even though they need you so much, as you say, the younger brothers and sisters. Would you feel that?
I'm like 100% sure that if you find yourself as a Sajja Yogi, you will find your role.
Yeah, exactly. If you have that
Yeah.
gravity within, but also again, and this is something actually with the yuvas. I spoke at a Sasrara Puja. I sat down with a few yuvas. We were discussing that, and I said, I think very often time between 20, 25s, when you're that age, you have no idea how important your role is in growing up the 15 years old, the people that are close to your age. Because you see, if somebody's
Yeah.
15 and I go talk to them, I'm still kind of an uncle. They still would not talk so openly to me. Also, I actually don't understand what their problem is because too many years pass by. But you are close enough to really get into their heart. There was an experience actually in the US also. I had that, I must say, quite changed my life because I was always a jolly, happy guy. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
mm, Grew up in Italy, all of that. But I was also very much on my own, and in the sense that I wouldn't bother. I'm like, I don't want to impose on other people. I'm like, I'm happy. If you want to hang out with me, I'm happy. If you don't, it's all good. Stress free. But I never had this thing of, oh, maybe I should encourage the younger people. Maybe I should spend more time. Maybe I should try to see how can I help. And it's going to be another dream wish imagine. Let me open a little parenthesis because we speak about this often. Of course, dreams wish imagine are very personal, journey. And here we're not sharing to make a lecture or to trying to impose a point. It's just that it fits within the context of the story and it doesn't apply to everyone. It's not a lecture. It's just a nice experience that happened.
A
Parenthesis closed.
disclaimer. A disclaimer.
Exactly. A little disclaimer, don't get, I hope we're not frustrating you with too many dreams sharing.
But you know what, Fabrizio? Like we've been talking about, you don't need like a miracle. You don't need like a miracle dream, like to make you feel like you belong to something or that you're on the right path. And you're like, let me give you an example with a miracle. Let me give you an
Totally. With a
example
with a dream.
with a dream. It's like-
This is the beauty of the podcast.
totally,
People
totally.
cannot talk back. No, just kidding.
It's not live. It's not live.
It's not live. There is no way. No, but it's actually a good point. It's actually a good point. But again, I think this the you I started by saying you see the struggle, which is I had no awareness, and I'm quite impressed of how somebody of your age has already that awareness. So in a weird way, if you wish, I had the dream because I didn't have the awareness. You know what I mean? They used to say
I get it.
people that are near to Shimaraji, there are two reasons. Either they're
Hmm.
super saints or they really need it. Right?
Yeah,
It
I
could
was
be
about to go in that.
it could be that way. But anyway, very quickly, the way I was connecting is the dream was quite interesting because basically Shimaji was giving a program, and the International Yuva Shakti at that time in the dream, we had done a super big program and we gave like hundreds of realizations. And Shimaji was very pleased. She was very happy. And then she said, okay, who worked on this program? And all the other Yuvas that worked on it went forward. There was like 10, we were 10 of us, and like 8 went forward. So me and another guy didn't go forward. And it was actually quite funny in the dream because I don't know why. It's like imagine a big room, and then
Hmm.
there was a huge wardrobe, un armadio, super big,
Yeah.
and I was sitting behind the wardrobe for no reason. Like I was sitting at that in front. I couldn't see Shimaraji because I chose that spot, which is like completely random. Anyway, I was kind of sitting there, and when Shimaraji's like, "Who worked on this?" I am like, that fake humility. I was just sitting back. I'm just gonna stand here, like I'm so humble.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and then she said, "Who worked on this project has to come forward." And then literally she went like this with her head looking at me as to say, "You have to come now." So kind of pulled my ears. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I also worked on it." And then she's like, "Okay," it's like, "So come forward. What's your name?" I say, "My name is Fabrizio," and she's like, "Okay." And then she looks at me. She's like, "What's the name of that person with the hat over there?" And I look at the person. I've seen them a million times. I had no idea what the name was. I was like,
Mm.
"I'm sorry, Shimachi, I don't know." "What's the job of that girl over there in third row?" And I look back. I'm like, I sorry, Shimaji, I don't know.
Pass.
Where does that child lives? I'm sorry, Shimaji, I don't know. So basically, she showed me how I was so much into my bubble. It's like
Mm.
you're here every day, but are you talking to the people? Are you looking after the people? Are you opening your heart to everyone, not just to your group of friends? And then she looked and she's like, "I'm gonna come back in a month, and I want you to know the name of everybody and the job and everything that is related to them." And I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't know. I was like, "Of course, Shimaj, yes, I will do." And then I realized how little I knew, and some of them were secret, some of them were people in the collective, but how little I was putting my positive attention and love on other people rather than just trying to find myself. And then it was very sweet because I immediately went into Lev Shuddhi, and so I'm like, "Oh man,
Yeah. Totally.
I'm useless, this and that, I should have known, such easy question." And then Shimaji took my hand, and she's like a mother, and she's like, "None of this nonsense, none of this Lev Shuddhi. This is not real. Don't do that." And then she just looks at me. She's like, "Now just listen. The journey has just begun. It's like, don't feel guilty about what happened before. Just move forward and do it the proper way. There's no need to feel guilty." And she held my hand, and I felt so much love and compassion coming from her, like how constantly we are a bit below what expectation should be, right? But
Yeah.
nevertheless, she encourages us to go forward. So my point is that literally that was one of my pivot moments in life. Now, I don't know if I go to a program and there's new seekers, no matter who they are, no matter how old or young or how they look, whatever, I always try to, like, even now, I don't speak French. I go and somehow I try to make myself useful. If you are in a group and it's all young people and there's two aunties, I'll always go to the aunties and make sure that's, we're talking to them, vice versa. If I'm with the uncle and there's a young little kid and it's kind of getting bored, I immediately, my attention goes there. because I think that's what Shimaji will want of us. And if you think about it, if everybody has that kind of attention, you don't need to find your place in Sahaj, because everybody's
Yeah.
attention will work in that sense.
Yeah, what is really interesting to me is that because it's what happened to me, is that you sometimes it's like people say, oh, you have to talk to the person, you have to talk to the younger Yuva Shakti, but sometimes it's not always the right move. Sometimes just include
Mm,
them in something that, like for example, there is a football match, like we're gonna play a football match, we're gonna spend some time together. There you build a friendship, and
yeah,
sometimes you can also like get involved into collective stuff through that friendship.
absolutely,
Like
absolutely,
then growing up as friends, then we grew up as yogis,
absolutely.
and now we are here, trying to include the younger yogis. So you don't have to go there and talk to them and be like the annoying uncle in brackets, annoying in brackets,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
still respectful to the uncles, but
yeah,
also
yeah.
just include them in doing something, and eventually things will happen, especially
No,
in Saja Yoga.
as a matter of fact, I think what you said is correct, which is you shouldn't even give any advice until you become friends. Ideally,
Hmm.
you know what I mean. Like you don't go talk to the people to give them advice. You go to the people to literally be friend.
Yeah.
Once that heart to heart connection is established, then you can give the advice. Then you can have a chat and so on and so forth. I completely agree. I
At that
completely
point
agree. I
you don't
mean,
even need to give the advice, they will ask you the advice.
exactly,
Eventually it's like,
exactly.
is there. Yeah, that's also what is also really important based on my experiences now that I'm thinking about it, is that your friends are really important, but what was really also important to me was were my parents, because
Yeah,
they never been like really strict about Saja Yoga with me, and automatically I found my inspiration, I found my way into Saja Yoga, I understood Saja Yoga on my own, and that also was like it takes a huge role like in the Sahaj growth and the Sahaj spiritual career,
yeah, yeah.
like
In your
yeah, like
journey, in your
also.
spiritual.
And here comes like now, like I have a question to you, because you weren't born in Sahaj, you were a seeker, and maybe it's kind of different, like when you have yogis that are like your parents, your like for example left and right heart are have like a way bigger impact on you. What if like you weren't born in Saja Yoga and your parents are not Saja Yogis? And do you understand what I'm going? Like, it's
It's
not the
a it's a
same. Is
it's
it
a
the
very
same or is
tricky
not the
situation.
same?
Actually, it's a very tricky situation where, as usual, I think there is the plus and minus. So the plus is
Yeah,
this: the problem of, as you just mentioned, am I doing Sahaj because I want to or because my parents want? I never had that
okay.
problem. I knew it was me. So that's the easy part, if you wish. The difficult
Mm.
part, though, it actually is there, because if you are a yogi and your parents are not, actually there is certain things that your parents won't understand. And but at the same time, their role is oftentimes fulfilled by then an uncle and auntie or a brother or sister older than you, and then they kind of pick up on their role onto you, and that's the beauty of the collective also, I would say.
Yeah, that's another tricky thing. Totally. Like, go to your non-Sahaj parents and try to explain them what it feels like to put your name down. Like, what does it mean? Yeah, and also I maybe it's not like I'm going out of topic, but communication in Saja Yoga with Saja Yogi, like take your best friends or just communicate it with that person, because that is the only person that can understand you on a human level and on a Sahaj level.
Yeah,
So it can give you like practical like solution for your problem, but also like a Sahaj solution.
yeah,
And I feel like saying it because it doesn't happen to me, but I think that maybe many people will feel like also lost in the collective, which is like such a pity. It's like should not
yeah,
happen. But still, maybe it's because of you, because of your how are you like on a spiritual way, but also as a person. We don't really know how karma works, so we don't know what are you going through. It's really complicated. It's
But
really
that's
complicated.
actually you said something interesting. I think I actually had this once experience that I thought was really interesting. Once I gave saffronization to somebody in my school,
Yeah.
and she loved Saja Yoga. After 3 months, she came to the puja and so on and so forth. Then after, I don't know, maybe 6 months, I brought her to the ashram in New Jersey, and
Hmm.
she saw people that were husband and wife, and she
Mm.
saw how the women in the ashram were so full of innocent chastity and beauty. And when she saw that, she actually felt guilty, and she stopped coming to Sahaj because she's like, these people are too innocent, are too beautiful. When I see that, it makes me feel dirty. So I can't take it right now. It's actually a very interesting perspective I never thought about, which is if you are strongly misaligned with the collective because you are off,
Hmm.
when you go into the collective, you might feel that difference, and that might make you feel, whoa. But
Yeah.
sometimes it's not that the collective is not including you, is that you're off. You know what I mean? Now,
Yeah, totally.
we always, as a collective, we should always try to bring people in. We should always try to be nice and compassionate. But it's also the job of the individual. Sometimes you are just misaligned. Like, actually, it happened to me a few weeks ago. I just realized when I was talking to people, I was just disagreeing strongly. But the collective was showing me that, because whomever I was talking to, you actually, Lele, that day you
Yeah,
were
I
like,
know.
oh yeah, wow, you're really fired up today. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that to me was like, whoa, it means I'm off. Like, I'm really off. If everybody can notice it, I'm kind of off.
If even Lele can say that
if
I'm
you-
really fired up, literally I'm crossing a
if
line.
if I am misaligned even with Lele that far.
That there is no turning point.
Yeah, no, so to me it's also interesting. Again, it's a lot about what the collective can do, but also how do we introspect on what we do. And there's
The
one
best.
last point. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, no, go, 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 go.
No, I was gonna say there's one last point that to me is also very interesting, is that I don't know if you ever thought about it, but think about it. When you receive your sacralization, or when you listen to the speech of Shimaraji, now you know that she's God, right?
Yeah,
And she is literally telling you, I have chosen you individually as an instrument to do my job. It's kind of a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, it's biblical.
I
We
think
are
about it every single day.
and it's truthful. It's not to take light. It's extremely truthful. However, what does also happen? Because it is so important, because we feel a bit responsible about it, what I've seen, especially when you have a lot of yogis doing one thing, for example, we can get quite tense about things. You know what I mean? Meaning, if we don't do this, the world ends. Hence, I'm gonna fight you till death so that we do it You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
wouldn't do this for something less important. But because we are so aware that what we're doing is a God mission, we potentially sometimes, including me, this is my own experience, you can fall into the bit fanatic or aggressive side because you feel this is the work of God. You have to do it. You know what I mean? It can get very intense.
You know what is really interesting about this is that mm, some I feel that some people are like that because they feel that that mission is gonna end in their lifetime. Because it's not only
Yeah.
a one lifetime experience. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's my first life as a realized soul. I have many more things in the next life. So in this life, I won't see like
Absolutely.
Saja Yoga fully established, you know? And sometimes I feel like, okay, there is no time. We have to hurry. But also, we don't have to hurry.
And the divine timing is completely different from ours. one of again my most amazing stories. This time is not a dream; it's a real story. One of the most amazing thing that happened to me is, so I
So
don't know
you
if you
weren't
remember.
sleeping when it happened.
I was this this time I was fully awake. And no, it was quite interesting. I don't know if you remember, but 2 or 3 years ago there was a Shri Navaratri Puja. The starting of the Navaratri was one day in India, but it was another day in the West because of the particular placement of the planets. So
Okay.
what happened is that there was a shift. So in the West, we thought Navaratri would start on Tuesday. Instead, actually was supposed to start on Wednesday, let's say, right?
Hmm.
Sounds like a small thing, right? But in the tri-state, in New York, where I was, we had like, let's say, 5 groups, and each night each group had to do something. So night 5 you have to do another, night 4 you have to do this, now all of a sudden every single night is shifted. it, you have to do something else, and you have to do it on another day, and people took time off, and it was big logistical complicated thing. Let's just leave it at that.
Hmm.
What happened is, like, it's like 7 in the morning, I wake up, I am having this amazing meditation. At that time I was the coordinator in New York, and I literally hear my phone beep, 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 beep. These were just texts, one after the other, beep, 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 beep. So basically, this message had gone out that, Navaratri, it doesn't start Tuesday, it starts Wednesday, and everybody's writing. And what was quite amazing, I finished meditating, I start reading the messages, that many of the things that people were saying were right and correct. But
Yeah.
because they were kind of angry, it was creating problem. So somebody was like, "Oh, I knew it. This is what's wrong, because you don't listen to me," and da 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 da. The other person was like, "Yeah, and on top of that, Navaratri should be at night. Why is it in the morning? This is the people that want convenience." And all these things kind of made sense what they were saying, but there was so much tension in the air that it was impossible to deal with any of this. So I goes to the bus stop, and my phone is just going like beep 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 beep. And at that point, I stopped reading the messages. Just like, this is, there's nothing I can do. And it was quite interesting because there I lived in New Jersey in the kind of suburbs, so there's no
Hmm.
people around you. There's just no people. There's just nice grass and nice house and no people. And if there's anybody that don't say hi to you, everybody's like in their own life. So usually you don't speak to people in the street, not like Italy. And basically, I'm there, my phone is going on, and I just have this thought as I'm waiting for the bus. And I'm like, it's amazing because everybody wants to do something nice, everybody wants to contribute. But because everybody's angry, because everybody's tense about it, it's creating a huge mess that cannot be solved. And in that moment, I thought, if we could just for a moment pass the Aghi and just go in Sasrara, I'm sure we could find a solution. I was just thinking about that. And literally, as I'm thinking about it, I look left, and out of a corner, out of nowhere, I swear, a person just appears, start walking toward me, which was quite strange because, again, people don't. It's a place where there's not too many people around.
Yeah.
It's just a lady, and she walks straight to me, like if she was coming on a mission. And I'm like, okay, weird but cool, and she just
Totally.
comes to me, and I'm like, hi, and then she looks at me. She doesn't say hi. She she just looks at me. Is like, we have to say the Lord prayer, and like that for no
You were like,
reason,
why not?
That's my point. So I'm in the middle of the street in the US, open air, middle of the day. And I think she was more surprised than me because not only I said yes, but I opened my hands and closed my eyes and put my hand on the Aggie. I'm like, let's go. And then basically start Our Father who art in heaven. And we're in the middle of the street, say the Lord's Prayer. And he goes on. And then basically, literally, that timing, it couldn't be more perfect. Then she looks at me. She's like, all right, have a good day. And she leaves. And in the moment she leaves,
Mm.
the bus comes and it stops in front of me. So I'm like, I'm ready to go. And then I just look back and I'm like, usually a Jehovah Witness would do something like that, no? Like no, I'm serious. But she didn't give me a paper. She didn't try to convince me to some church. She just showed up and she said, we have to say the Lord's Prayer. So basically, I'm on the bus, and then it was amazing because I felt like something cleared up. And then literally, I sent a few messages, and people are like, "Oh, you know what? Actually, Wednesday works better for me." Da, 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 da. Oh, you know what? And somehow things one after the other start getting settled.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it sounds a bit like something up in the air, and something that is not really real logic, and it's not because it's not logic. But to me, it was such a powerful experience because I am a very organized, common sense, logic person. So I'm like, let's just make a schedule and everything needs to work in order for things to work. But then I also realize how that sometimes creates problem, and ultimately is that surrendering, is that going beyond the sasrara that really gives you that flow of things. And especially when we do things collectively and you have so many people, if everybody puts their ego into something, it's just going to be a huge mess. um so no, I mean, just to say that from that day on, and again, now this time I saw it from the other side, but usually very often I'm the person with the ego, wanting things to work on time and being kind of a bit more on the right side. So for me,
Yeah.
that was such a great lesson of how, sometimes just chill a bit, relax, take a step back, things work out, like things eventually do work out.
Yeah. Also, that's maybe it's gonna sound like a disclaimer. Also, it's really, really easy to share these stories, share these thoughts, these ideas in a moment that we are really chill. We are just saying what
Yes,
should be done, and in the reality, actually behave like that.
totally,
You know,
totally.
that's just a disclaimer because like we talked like about many topics, and I think we touched on like really important stuff tonight. But also it's like we are not perfect. Like sometimes we also
Absolutely.
get lost in that. So I felt like saying that. I felt like saying that.
all, all the time we get lost. No, but that, to me, that's the to me, that's the point, is you, and I actually think that's very important what you said, is the miracles also happened because there was a struggle, because you were in a difficult time. Like,
Yeah.
actually, miracles don't happen if you're breezing through. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
the the Mahabharata happened because there was a war, and then the whole
Hmm.
story develops. So it's through the difficulties and through the obstacles that you come across. Fully agree.
Yeah. Appreciate the pain is a bless. That's what JC said in a song. Not really a realized soul, but still a
But a
good
nice
writer.
guy.
But a nice guy.
Yeah, no, totally, totally.
Um,
I agree.
do we have like any more topic, or as you were mentioning before, we talked a little bit about marriages, and maybe we can end like this episode with a cliffhanger.
With a little cliffhanger, yes. So, well, yeah, I mean, talking again, I think, talking about the collective
Yeah.
in marriage. I'm just maybe end with a question. That will be fun.
Oof.
Oftentimes, we think about, oh, if I put my name down, how should I prepare? How do I wish the other person to be? And so on and so forth. Which is the obvious question to ask, right? And it's a good one, introspection, all that.
Totally.
At the same time, it's such marriages, if you look at that, it's such a collective thing, right? It's a thing that happened within a large family. So it's not just the people who get married, but the people around them. How can you best help by you're not doing something to help the couple? Like give them space or give whatever it is. And we're not gonna answer now, because in the next podcast we're going to have two members of the International Marriage Committee, very fun
Hmm.
ones. We're not gonna say the names, but we're gonna have very nice ones that are going to answer these very fun questions for us. So stay tuned for episode 6.
Yeah, so we're gonna have like a really special edition of Sahaj Times. Can we say it a marriage edition? And so also maybe I don't think if it's going to be possible, but if you have any question that you would like to ask them, guys, we have a great opportunity right now. We have a great opportunity to ask to the to two members of the marriage committee any question. You know, like so if you want to text us like on Instagram, as I said before, like on our DM or anything, you literally can.
Yeah.
So maybe for today, I think it's enough, Fabrizio. We talked a
Yes.
lot. I'm starving. I'm thirsty. I'm totally not detached from my physical needs. So I feel like we can close the podcast. And thank
Super.
you really much, Fabrizio. Thank to everyone for listening to this, for supporting our project. And well, I mean, let's see you soon. So, bye.
Ciao, ciao.